Hey, well, we will just dive right in. Welcome, everybody. It is Financial Wellness Month, the Healthy Lifestyles. And so today we have Jennifer Sass from My529, Utah's Educational Savings Plan, to talk to you about their program and how it could benefit you and your family. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jennifer. Jenny Sass brings 15 years of sales and marketing experience to My529. She has a bachelor's degree in marketing communications with a minor in business management. After 8 years in advertising sales at the Star Tribune newspaper in Minneapolis, Jenny moved to Utah to continue working in media and education-oriented companies. For the last 7 years, Jenny has worked as an outreach marketing specialist at My529, working on sponsorships, contests, education, and business initiatives, and much more. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. We'll go ahead and I guess kick us off here. I have, like was mentioned, have been with My529 for almost 7 years. And today I'm going to give you an introduction. A lot of people are not familiar with 529s and how they work. And so this is a little bit of a deep dive into 529 plans. So here's just an overview of today's agenda, what we'll be talking about. And it sounds like we'll just address questions at the end. So I'm just going to kind of go through the material. Hopefully I'll answer a lot of the questions you have. Usually during the course of the presentation, I do address a lot of things that typically come up, but just kind of keep those top of mind. And if I don't address them for some reason, I'll be happy to do that at the end. All right. So 529s and specifically 529 plans. Let's talk about that. So 529 plans have actually been around for over 25 years. They've been helping people invest for the cost of higher education expenses as well as K through 12 tuition expenses. They're similar to a Roth IRA where you put in an after tax dollars. So just bear that in mind. Every state has a 529 plan with the exception of Wyoming. My529 is Utah's official 529 educational savings plan, and we've been serving families since 1996. My529 is recognized as one of the top 4 plans in the country, and our fees are among the lowest in the 529 industry. And here's how we are able to pass along those low fees. We're a direct sale plan. So you set up the account directly with My529. You don't need to involve a financial advisor or a third party unless you would like to. The Utah the Utah Board of Higher Education oversees our operations. We are quasi-governmental, so we are a self-supporting state agency. This allows us to keep our costs down and our fees low, and we are not a bank. All right, let's transition to a few essentials about us. First, you'll need to identify an account owner, and this is the person who will control and open the account. Then you'll list the beneficiary, and this is the person that you're saving for. Oftentimes, it's your own child. It could be a grandchild. It could be a niece or nephew. It could even be someone else you want to support in this way. Account owners must be at least 18 years old and have a social security or tax identification number and a physical US address. The beneficiary, like I said, could be anybody you'd like to save for. There is only one beneficiary per account, and they also need to have a social security or tax identification number. Most beneficiaries are the children of account owners, but like I said, that could be a niece or a nephew, a godchild, a neighbor, it could be a grandchild. Then after that, you'll choose an investment option and contribute to your account. So one of the big draws of 529 plans are the tax advantages. And so 529s give people a tax advantage way to save for education. This is where 529 plans have an edge over other savings vehicles. For example, like going to a local bank or credit union. The key reason to choose a 529 plan to save for education, earnings grow tax deferred from federal and state taxes. Best of all, you can withdraw the money tax-free when you use the funds for qualified higher education expenses like tuition and fees. We'll talk more about how you can use your funds in just a few minutes. In terms of tax benefits, the key reason to choose a 529 plan for education earnings grow tax deferred from federal and state taxes. Best of all, you can withdraw money tax-free when you use the funds for qualified higher education expenses. Utah taxpayers who claim the annual Utah state tax income credit can earn even greater savings. And this chart depicts how that works. The state of Utah offers My529 account owners who are Utah residents a 4.95 state income tax credit per qualified beneficiary on contributions up to certain limits. If you file single, for example, and contribute $2,130 during the year of 2022, you can receive a $105.44 tax credit. Joint filers who contribute $42.60 in 2020 could receive a $210.88 tax credit. This also works for grantor trusts as a credit, and there's a deduction possible for corporations as well. The tax credit or deduction is for the contribution per qualified beneficiary. So for example, if you have opened up, again, you need to open an account specific to the one child. So if you have 4 children and you're opening an account up for each child, you would be eligible for this tax credit per account you have open. The beneficiary needs to be 18 or younger when designated on the account. So again, you could open an account for yourself, but this tax credit is just for children under 18. However, it lasts on the life of the account. So for example, if your kid takes a deferment, or if the child goes on a mission and they want to keep contributing, and that money can go toward a master's degree in the future. So as a parent, you know, if you're putting money into the account, or anybody that's putting money in the account, and later on we'll talk about the ability to gift into 529 accounts, all that money is going toward this tax credit you can earn. All right. The tax credits are a dollar for dollar offset of your tax liability. So just keep that in mind. All right, investing with My529. So during the sign-up process, after you identify the account owner and beneficiaries, you will select an investment option. Each My529 contribution you make is invested based on that investment option. We have 24 investment options that include stocks, bonds, principal preservation funds, or a combination. The investment options fall into 3 different categories. There's 12 enrollment date options, and this replaced our age-based option we used to have. And these are based on the beneficiary's estimated enrollment in higher education. So investments range from conservative to aggressive. Conservative means more use of bond funds or funds that preserve capital like stable value or FDIC, while aggressive means more equities or stock-based mutual funds are used. Our enrollment date options are similar to target date retirement fund, where the investment allocation is more aggressive with a younger beneficiary and becomes more conservative as the beneficiary moves closer to their estimated date of enrollment. Account owners have the flexibility to choose the enrollment date option that aligns with their goals and risk tolerance, and aren't tied to an option based on the beneficiary's age. 10 static options range from aggressive to conservative. If you choose a static option, your investment keeps the allocation until you're ready to use it. There are 2 customized options where you can build your own investment allocation. If you're savvy and willing to do that, you can select how aggressive or conservative you want to be. And from our variety of investment options, you can choose the option that best meets your needs. When you open an account with My529, it is an investment. My529 does not provide investment advice. Funds invested in My529 are not guaranteed unless held in the FDIC insured accounts. As with any investment, there is a chance that your account could lose value. And the federal government allows for 2 investment option changes per year. So you do have the ability to change investment options if you don't necessarily like the one you initially picked.
And Jenny, to clarify, it was in the chat. Is it one account per child or one account for multiple children?
So a child could have multiple accounts, but there's only one person designated on the account, if that makes sense. So some parents have the idea that maybe they would open an account and then just have a succession of children kind of rotating through that account, if that makes sense. So like, let's say, Johnny is the child that's initially attached to the account, but then, Sally is right after him going to college, that the funds can just be used, maybe even simultaneously for both children, but there needs to be a designated beneficiary on the account. So we'll talk about it a little later. If Johnny decides not to go to school, Johnny's account can be transferred to Sally with no penalty, but Johnny needs to only be the only child utilizing that account at that time, if that makes sense. So, and part of that is if we don't require any sort of paperwork when you are taking withdrawals from your account. But in the event you're audited by the government, you need to make sure that it's showing that the child that's attached to the account is the one receiving the funds. But Johnny could have more than one account. A grandparent could own an account, an aunt and uncle could own an account, and a parent can own an account. So a child could certainly have multiple accounts owned by different account owners. All right, so we are here on the fee range slide. Like I mentioned earlier, My529's fees are among the lowest in the nation. My529 believes in keeping fees low so that your investment has more potential for growth. My529's low fees have been praised by Morningstar, the independent investment research firm. All right. The next question is, how do I contribute to my account? My529 makes it easy to contribute as much and as often as your budget allows. In this section, we'll discuss the different ways you can contribute and look at how saving even small amounts can add up toward your goal. Once you set up an account and choose an investment option, your next question is usually, how can I start saving? My529 accepts checks, one-time or reoccurring electronic contributions, bill pay, special occasion, and payroll direct deposit contributions. And payroll direct contributions will rest on if your employer is able to make multiple direct deposits. So that's something you'll have to check with HR. We also have a gift program for family and friends to contribute to your beneficiary's account. Now, I'll take a minute to talk about our gifting program because I think this is a great thing to just share with friends and family. Oftentimes kids get a lot of gifts that probably end up, going to the DI or something. They outgrow clothes, but why not give the gift of education? We have a gift code that you can set up as an account owner and then share that with family and friends, and then they can contribute to your child's account. So this is a great way, family, they're looking for a gift idea. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Any money that's going into the account that you own is also going toward that Utah state tax credit that I mentioned earlier. So that's fantastic. And we also have nice little gift notices you can print out. Sometimes maybe a grandparent's like, well, they're not going to know that I put the money in. Well, we have a bunch of gift notices they could print out so that they can let the child know that some money was contributed to their 529 account. People want to know how much they should be saving. And unfortunately, since My529 can't give financial advice, we can't answer that. And honestly, that is really going to depend on where you're going to school too. I've had that question often at events of, how much should I be saving? Well, it's a big difference if your child's going to Harvard versus SLIC. So definitely just dependent on different circumstances. But at my529.org, we feature a free college savings estimator where you can plug in your savings goals and explore possibilities. So that's a great resource to check out. All right, contributions may grow. One thing we can say for sure is the consistent savings add up. Even earning $10, $25, $50, or $100 a month can defray college costs. It may not cover the entire degree, but it could cover books, housing, or tuition and fees. Many people who save with us have the goal of helping to cover the cost of education. They're not necessarily saving for the whole expense. Most important takeaway, every dollar you save means that there's one less dollar you need to borrow or pay with interest. All right, how to use the funds. Now we'll explore how to use the funds.
Jenny, we can't see your PowerPoint anymore.
Oh, goodness, what happened? All right, what happened? Must have somehow unshared. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that.
No problem, thank you.
All right, okay, here we go. All right. So here is how you can use your My529 funds. Qualified means that the withdrawals won't be taxed if you use the funds for approved educational expenses. And those include tuition and required fees, room and board for students attending at least half-time, required books, supplies and equipment, computers, computer-related costs, including internet access, registered apprenticeships, K through 12 tuition expenses up to $10,000 annually at public, private, or religious elementary and secondary schools, as well as qualified education loan repayments up to the total of $10,000 lifetime from all 529 accounts. Your My529 funds cannot be used to pay for transportation or cell phones. And I just want to mention at this point too, that they can be used at any school that accepts federal student financial aid. So it's not just limited to Utah schools. Sometimes people think because it's Utah's plan, they could only be used at Utah schools. However, you have the ability to use it anywhere that accepts federal student financial aid. And there's a website that the government provides that you can actually access a list of schools that fit that criteria. And here's just a look at where My529 withdrawals have landed over the years. So this illustration tracks the withdrawals that My529 sent directly to institutions in the United States. What it doesn't show is when My529 sends withdrawals to account owners or beneficiaries who then paid for their own expenses. And we'll talk about that in terms of when you take a withdrawal, that withdrawal has the ability to go directly to the school. It can go to your beneficiary or it can go to you. We highlighted a few of the different kinds of schools from universities to technical schools. So please bear in mind too that it's not limited to just what you consider traditional four-year college, that it's technical schools as well. When it's time to make withdrawal, you can request that My529 send a check to you, the account owner, to your beneficiary, or to the designated institution. So in the, if it's going to you as the account owner, think of it as kind of reimbursing yourself. So you're paying for something, taking that money out of your 529 account, and you want to hold on to that receipt. Like I said earlier, just in case you're audited, you could give the money to your beneficiary to have them pay the college expense, or if it's, for example, tuition, you can go directly to the school to pay. Great. And here's a sampling of some of the Utah institutions. The schools in the left and the right column are the state colleges, universities, and technical schools within the Utah system of higher education. In the center column are some of Utah's private colleges and universities. My529 funds can also be used at eligible technical and trade schools. And some of those include Taylor Andrews Academy of Hair Design, Healing Mountain Massage School, and Visual Art Institute. And there are other schools that qualify. So as I mentioned earlier, check the federal financial aid website and they'll have the most recent up-to-date list of places that you can use that money. All right, financial aid. So there are many options available to pay for higher education. I think sometimes when people think about saving for college, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but there's actually paying for college is a combination of things. So a My529 account can be part of your comprehensive college savings. Paying for college involves pulling funds from different buckets, money you don't have to pay back and money you do. Scholarships and grants fall into the category of money you won't have to pay back. If your student qualifies, scholarships and grants can greatly reduce the overall price, but typically don't cover the cost of tuition or of room and board. And I know I've talked to people personally at outreach events where even full ride scholarships do not cover all costs. So there's still some fees and things that can need that coverage. 529 plans like My529 help families save in advance for higher education. Can a 529 account affect the possibility of qualifying for financial aid? This is a question we often get. One myth we hear is that a 529 account will diminish a child's ability to get the best possible financial aid package. Your 529 funds will have a much greater impact on your ability to pay for college than the amount of financial aid you qualify for. When you file for financial aid, you will need to complete the free application for federal student aid form known as a FAFSA. They'll process your application and give you a number called the expected family contribution, or EFC. The EFC is a number the school uses to calculate how much financial aid you are eligible to receive. They use a formula that includes a family's taxed and untaxed income, assets, and benefits, as well as family size and family members attending college during that year. 529 assets are factored in as part of the EFC, but all parental assets only count up to 5.64%. So here's an example of a financial aid package could look like to show you that even though the sticker price of college can be high, most people don't end up paying the price up front thanks to federal aid, scholarships, loans, and a My529 account. This is a sticker price for tuition and fees in the 2018-19 year for a four-year public university in Utah. We took published data and figured in tuition, fees, books, and supplies, but not room and board. We made a few assumptions. The student had parents who had made $65,000 per year for a family of 3.14 with a student in college, and this student would be the college student. We put in a GPA of 3.3 and an ACT score of 20, around the Utah average. Since this is an estimate, note that grants, federal work study, scholarship packages, and federal student loans are not guaranteed. Individual packages may vary depending on academic and financial qualifications. We looked at the averages for federal grants and work study as well as scholarship packages to put this together. We also added in a possible $2,000 federal student loan, which is less than the federal annual borrowing amount. Though the loan would reduce the initial amount of out-of-pocket, it would require being paid back with interest, especially an out-of-pocket cost down the road. If we were to remove the loan for the estimate, then the initial out-of-pocket cost would be $4,058 for the year. See how a My529 account could help and how you could save some and still make a difference? Here's our second example. This is the cost of an entire 900-hour technical school program in Utah for the 2018-19 school year. The student loan amount is higher on this example. We didn't list a scholarship. We're just showing different possibilities. For instance, the family could invest in a My529 account to help cover the cost or the entire cost. Setting aside funds in a My529 account could make a difference toward the expenses. This family could save instead of borrowing the $4,500, for example. By the way, here are a couple of interesting stats about financial aid, the public state schools in Utah. In the 2014-15 years, 54% of Utah Board of Higher Education students received some sort of gift aid. which includes scholarships and grants at an average of around $4,600 per student. 1 in 5 Utah Board of Higher Education students have 100% of tuition/fees covered. All right, here's just a few quick things before we wrap up. One question we often get is, so I'm going to invest in a 529 plan. What happens if plans change? My intention is I'd love my child to go to college, but what if plans change? You can make what's called a non-qualified withdrawal from your My529 account for anything not considered a qualified higher education expense. However, you will pay income taxes and a 10% federal penalty on the earnings. Utah residents must add back or claim the amount of withdrawal as income on their state tax return in the year they made the withdrawal. However, there are a few exceptions. The penalty, tax, and add back do not apply if the beneficiary receives a scholarship up to the amount of the scholarship or attends a U.S. Service Academy. It also does not apply if the beneficiary dies or becomes disabled. There are no limits on My529 accounts. And if there are funds left over in an account, you have the following options. Leave the account open for your beneficiary's graduate expenses. Transfer the funds at no cost to a member of the beneficiary's family. And if you look at our program description, the list of what's considered beneficiary's family is really quite a long list. Oftentimes, the money will be moved, from one sibling to another, but it's even broader than that. Change a beneficiary in the account at no cost to a sibling or hold it for the next generation like a grandchild. The bottom line is the funds in the account are yours. And then I just wanted to highlight a couple of fun scholarship contest opportunities that we have for Utah residents. In each of these promotions, children can enter for a chance to earn up to a chance to win $1,000 college savings scholarship. So Book Your Summer is a contest we do in conjunction with the state library system. So that will start May 1st and run through July 31st. If you go to your local library, sign up for the summer reading program, and then go to bookyoursummer.com, you have the ability to be eligible for one of 4 $1,000 scholarships. Then in September is College Savings Month. And to celebrate that, we do a bookmark design contest. And we have 2 winners in each grade category, K through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 8, and 9 through 12. And the bookmarked art for 2 students in each of those age categories. So 4 winners will each win, 4 categories, 8 total winners will win $1,000 scholarship with that as well. All right. In terms of opening a My529 account, I shared a sheet with Sadie that we are actually extending a $20 one-time match for employees of Salt Lake County. So she will distribute that information. And again, if you have 1 child, you have 5 children, you open an account for each of them, put $20 in as an initial contribution, we'll do a one-time match. Again, though, there is no minimum balance or ongoing requirement with 529 plans, so that is great. And then just to end here, we believe in telling you about risks, so I just want to share our disclosure here quickly. And if you or your beneficiary are not Utah residents, or if you're recommending My529 to someone who lives out of state, we ask you to look at the 529 plan in your home state first. There may be state tax benefits or other advantages to residents that My529 cannot provide. All right. Is there any questions?
It looks like there are a couple questions in the chat.
Awesome.
This first one says, I used My529, then it was UESP for my daughters. I've encouraged my much younger sister to set up accounts for her children. She's reluctant because she doesn't want to read the paperwork. If I set up the accounts for the kids, I would need to ask for their social security numbers, but I'm uncomfortable doing that. Any suggestions?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I mean, we certainly do encourage you to read the program description, before you open an account. Um, you know, is everybody doing that? I don't know. I could hope. Um, you know, Maybe if you encourage her to open the account and then promised a gift into it, she would enjoy that. That's kind of an incentive because, like I said, we have a great gifting program, and if she opens an account, you have the ability to gift in there, and that's a gift I think that keeps on giving to the kiddos.
And the next question says, pertaining to this question, if she sets up the account for her nieces and nephews, who gets the tax credit? Would it be the person who set up the account or?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
So the account owner on the accounts is the one that gets the tax credit. That's correct.
all right. Next one says, can I child have more? Let's see. Can my child have more than one My529 or My529 account without any penalty?
As far as I know, yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, there might be a grandparent that owns an account. You might own an account. For
Mm.
example, my colleague Scott, his parents have an account for his child in a different state because they actually reside in Arizona. So, um, you know, there's a possibility of someone living in a different state and having a 529 account for your child as well.
All right. And this one says, does the beneficiary have to report their My529 funds as income if they're applying for student financial aid or grants?
I don't believe that for students it says that it counts as income. The only scenario, so are you talking about a parent-owned account or the student owns the account for themselves? Because that's a little bit of a different scenario. I'm guessing they're meaning a parent owns the account.
Yes, they clarified.
Yeah,
Parent.
and we talked about that. Matter of fact, things are changing with grandparent accounts too, because grandparent accounts used to have a little bit more effect with financial aid, but that is changing here. So in the past, we would talk about waiting with a grandparent account till the child wasn't going to be applying for financial aid anymore because it does affect his income, but that is actually that's changing. So, which is great for grandparent owned accounts.
Wonderful. And the next one we have is, can the 529 funds be used for K through 12 tuition expenses at public, private, or religious schools?
Yes, that's a more recent addition. So within the last probably 3 years, the K through first it was the K through 12 tuition, and then it was the registered apprenticeships. And I actually set up a page on our website about registered apprenticeships. So if there's anybody interested in, and again, that's kind of more on the technical college track, which I think definitely draws a lot of people. And just bear in mind that technical college isn't just maybe what we think about in the past, like welding. It could be registered apprenticeship could be a tech company in Silicon Slopes, for example. And I worked with a gentleman who works for a company by the name of Apprenti that works closely with Silicon Slopes to find those registered apprenticeship opportunities that are more technical oriented. So
This next one, I am not sure the answer to it. It says, does Salt Lake County offer direct deposit to a 529 account? I do not know that, but Jenny, is there a way for, I guess
yeah,
we'd have to be connected that way.
yeah. So basically, a couple of thoughts on that. Uh, a lot of people are moving jobs more often. I would say the Gen Z and millennials tend to job change a little bit more. And so you could certainly set up through your employer. I met a gentleman last summer at the Rural School Association conference who had moved jobs, and he had set up his direct deposit through his employer and had left and went into another government position, but forgot about his 529 account. And so there was kind of a lag time where he wasn't able to contribute. And so it might be a better idea just to set it up directly through your checking account. But if you do approach your employer, they just have to have the ability to do multiple direct deposits when they're fulfilling payroll, if that makes sense. So, all my check goes into my checking account, but, would you have the ability to kind of siphon that off into different buckets? And so that'll be a question to ask your HR representative.
Oh, this person has a suggestion. They said I would fund each kid's my 529 account with each year's tax refunds. Easy to
Yeah,
remember that way.
yeah. And so you'll actually notice in the last few years when you are doing your Utah state taxes that it gives you the option of allocating your refund to your My529 account. So that's been something that's really, really great. So look for that when you're doing your taxes this year. If you open up accounts, that you have that ability to put it directly into your 529 accounts.
This person asks, is there an annual maximum that you could contribute?
So I believe it was on that slide that I showed. Let me just, there's not a max. In terms of the tax credit, there is a maximum and there's an overall maximum, which I'm going to have to say the average person's not going to touch with a 10-foot pole. So in terms of the tax credit, um, those numbers that I shared earlier. So for a single filer, it's $2,130. So you can put more or less into the account. That's just the cap to get that $105.44 credit. And then with joint filers, it's $42.60. And then you get the $210.88 credit. So again, you can put more or less. You're going to get, the 4.95% percentage, up to, on that amount up to that amount cap.
Our next question is, how can we know what the grandparent owned account rules are and when that changes happen?
So I have a couple articles that I could share. Sadie, would it be helpful to send those to you and then have you send those out? Yeah.
Yes, I can do that.
I believe one of them was from College Savings Network, which kind of highlights all the different 529 accounts around the country. But I have a couple of great articles that go into the details on that, so I can forward those to you after this call, and then
Perfect.
send those out. Because
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know like the way that they keep track of and report financial aid, it's always like prior, so you just have to kind of read through the article and see when exactly that takes effect. But I think that's a great boon for grandparent owned accounts.
And we have a new question. When I withdraw funds from the account, am I required to send the proof of eligible expenses to my 529?
Nope. So it's really a trust system. And so, like I said earlier, just hold on to those receipts. Um, I remember my colleague telling me once a gentleman came up to him at a event and told him that he bought a car with his 529 funds. That would not be what we could be considered an eligible expense. It does not cover transportation. It's not going to cover a plane ticket if your child is maybe going to college out of state, or a bus pass, that type of thing. Those are unfortunately not considered qualified higher education expenses. Now, there are some things that might verge a little bit into the murky, like a cafeteria plan and things. Again, consult a tax advisor on some of things that aren't like necessarily distinctly mentioned. Like we talked about fees and tuition and room and board, things that are pretty cut and dry.
And we don't have any other questions in the chat. Actually, one just popped in. How long can I leave the money in the account if a grandchild decides not to go to school at 18?
Indefinitely. I mean, the money is yours. The account just stays open. Sometimes I think when we make that comparison to a Roth, that's so each triggered, and people think, well, I got to use it at this time. And really, it's just open until you use the funds. So you could continue to contribute if, 18 rolls around and, that kid's taken a sabbatical for a few years and just keep putting money. Another thing that I talk about too, just because often, I'll talk to parents and say, I paid for my college myself. These kids need some skin in the game. And, once kids have jobs and have the ability to earn money, I don't think there's any reason why they couldn't give you some of their money and you can put it in the 529 plan for them and help them save for college. So they can kind of feel like they're contributing as well.
Any last questions? Alrighty. Well, if you haven't already, please sign in for your Healthy Lifestyles points. I've put the link in the chat, and this will also give me your email to send some of the documents over that Jen has sent us. Well, thank you very much for being here today. We really appreciate you sharing this service with us.
Yeah, this is awesome. Really glad to be here. Great questions. I really appreciate the opportunity to share information. I think I didn't know anything about 529 plans before I started working with them. And I just think, man, I wish this would have been around when I was saving for college. But it's just a really great resource for families to save.
We have a lot of thank yous in the chat and a lot of people who do have this and love it. So thank you.
Really appreciate it. And you guys, I think, are our biggest advocates, all of our account owners that are out there spreading the good word. So we appreciate that.